A courtroom that seems designed to crush her suddenly becomes the place where power begins to fracture. When a pregnant woman is forced to stand alone while her wealthy husband laughs, convinced that lawyers and money have already decided the outcome, what he does not expect is that she refuses to stay silent. She rises and defends herself with calm precision, turning the trial into a moment that exposes control, deception, and arrogance in front of everyone. This is not just a legal battle. It is a collision between privilege and truth, and the final moment will leave everyone stunned when the man who has quietly presided over the case is revealed to be someone no one ever anticipated. Stay with us, because the moment you think this story is over is exactly when everything turns. Let us know where you are listening from and what time it is for you. Drop a comment below. We would love to hear from you. The courtroom was already full when Anna Reynolds stepped inside. Every bench was occupied. Reporters lined the back wall with notebooks ready. A low murmur spread through the room as heads turned almost instinctively toward the entrance. This was not an ordinary divorce hearing. The case involved a wealthy businessman, a significant marital estate, and allegations that promised drama. People had come expecting spectacle. What they did not expect was the woman walking in alone. Anna moved slowly, not because she lacked resolve, but because the weight of her pregnancy demanded care. She was 7 months along. Her hand rested lightly on her abdomen as she walked toward the front row, her posture straight, her expression calm. She did not scan the room. She did not look for reassurance. She took her seat without a word. Whispers followed her. Some were curious. Others were dismissive. More than a few carried quiet judgment. On the opposite side of the courtroom sat Mark Reynolds. He looked exactly like a man who believed he had already won. Mark wore a tailored navy suit, crisp and expensive, his posture relaxed in a way that suggested confidence bordering on boredom. Beside him sat his attorney, Daniel Brooks, a seasoned litigator known for aggressive courtroom tactics. Files were neatly arranged on the table in front of them. Every detail had been prepared. Mark glanced toward Anna and smirked. He leaned back in his chair, folded his arms, and let out a short laugh that was loud enough for several people nearby to hear. It was not nervous laughter. It was the kind that came from certainty. He had lawyers, he had resources, he had witnesses lined up, and from his perspective, he had a fragile opponent, a pregnant woman, alone, without counsel. The bailiff called the courtroom to order. All rise. Aye, overs. The judge entered, taking his seat behind the elevated bench with practiced composure. His face was neutral, his movements precise. Nothing about him suggested surprise or interest. He looked down at the case file briefly, then lifted his gaze. "Please be seated," he said. The judge confirmed the parties' names, the case number, and the purpose of the hearing. A contested divorce, with additional claims regarding financial misconduct and allegations of emotional instability. His voice was even procedural, controlled. Then he turned his attention to the left table. "Mr. Brooks," he said, "are you ready to proceed on behalf of Mr. Reynolds?" Daniel Brooks stood smoothly. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge nodded and shifted his gaze. "Miss Reynolds," he said, "do you have legal representation present today?" The question landed heavily in the room. Anna stood. "Yes, Your Honor," she said clearly. Her voice was steady, unshaken. "I am representing myself." "I." The murmur returned, louder this time. Daniel Brooks raised his eyebrows slightly, as if amused. Mark did not bother hiding his reaction. He laughed openly now, a sharp sound that echoed off the courtroom walls. "This is unbelievable," he said under his breath, though it carried far enough to be heard. The judge looked at him briefly, not with anger, but with warning. "Mr. Reynolds," the judge said, "you will remain silent unless addressed." End quote. Mark lifted his hands in mock surrender, still smiling. Anna remained standing. "Your Honor," she continued, "I am aware of my right to legal counsel. I am also aware of the risks of proceeding without one. I am choosing to speak for myself." Daniel Brooks rose again. "Your Honor," he said, "given the complexity of this case and the condition of the opposing party, we would respectfully request a continuance to allow Miss Reynolds to secure proper representation." End quote. The phrase condition of the opposing party was deliberate. Anna turned her head toward Brooks for the first time. My pregnancy does not impair my ability to understand facts or speak the truth, she said. I am prepared to proceed. The judge raised a hand. Miss Reynolds, he said, this court must ensure that you understand the implications of self-representation. You will be held to the same procedural standards as an attorney. I understand, Anna replied. Very well, the judge said. He paused for a brief moment, then nodded once. The court will allow Miss Reynolds to proceed pro se. The decision settled over the room like a shift in air pressure. Mark leaned toward his attorney, whispering something with a grin that suggested confidence rather than concern. From his perspective, the situation was ideal. A lone woman against a seasoned legal team, a narrative already primed for victory. The judge outlined the structure of the hearing. Opening statements would be brief. Evidence and testimony would follow in accordance with court procedure. Interruptions would not be tolerated. Mr. Brooks, the judge said, you may begin. Daniel Brooks stepped forward. He spoke with ease, outlining a clean, polished narrative. A marriage that had deteriorated, a wife whose emotional state had become unpredictable, financial disputes exaggerated by misunderstanding, a husband seeking clarity and resolution. He spoke calmly. He spoke confidently. Mark watched with satisfaction. When Brooks finished, he returned to his seat and gave a slight nod to his client. The judge turned to Anna. Miss Reynolds, he said, you may make your opening statement. Anna took a breath. She did not rush. She did not dramatize. She simply spoke. I am not here to ask for sympathy, she said. I am here to tell the truth. I will present facts. I will present timelines. I will present evidence. I will speak for myself because no one understands what happened inside my marriage better than I do. She paused briefly, then continued. This court will hear many things about my emotional state. It will hear assumptions made about me because I am pregnant. I ask only that I be judged by my words and the facts I present, not by what others think I should be. The room was silent. Anna sat down. The judge nodded once. Very well, he said. We will proceed. End quote. Mark leaned back again, his smile returning. To him, the outcome still seemed inevitable. The hearing had begun, and everyone in that room believed they already knew how it would end. Before the courtroom, before the lawyers and the accusations, there had been a marriage that looked flawless from the outside. Anna Reynolds remembered the early years clearly. The dinners, the travel, the carefully curated photographs that filled social media and business magazines. Mark knew how to present success. He understood optics. He understood how to make a life look enviable. In public, he was attentive. In meetings, he spoke proudly of his wife. Friends described them as balanced, stable, admired. Anna believed that version of their marriage once. She believed it because she wanted to. The change did not arrive with violence. It arrived quietly, disguised as concern. When she became pregnant, Mark insisted on managing her schedule. He said stress was dangerous. He suggested fewer outings, fewer calls, fewer visits. At first, it sounded reasonable. He framed everything as protection. He reviewed her appointments. He asked for details about her conversations. He discouraged spontaneous plans. When she questioned it, he reminded her that she was carrying his child. Anna adjusted. She told herself it was temporary. She told herself it was care. As the pregnancy progressed, the control tightened. Mark began reviewing expenses closely. He questioned purchases that had once gone unnoticed. He suggested joint approval for withdrawals. He said it was for budgeting. He said it was for the baby. Anna found herself asking permission for things she had never needed permission for before. When she expressed discomfort, Mark dismissed it. He told her she was emotional. He told her pregnancy hormones distorted perception. He said she needed to trust him. She tried. The isolation followed next. Calls with friends became shorter. Visits became rare. Mark always had a reason. He did not forbid contact. He redirected it. He delayed it. He replaced it with obligations. Anna began spending more time alone. filling hours with silence she did not recognize at first. When she did speak about feeling overwhelmed, Mark responded with irritation. "You wanted this child," he said once. "Now you need to be responsible." Responsibility became a word that ended conversations. Anna started documenting moments privately, not out of strategy, but out of instinct. Dates, comments, changes in tone. She did not know why she felt the need to record them. She only knew that something inside her had begun to feel unstable, and writing things down made it easier to breathe. The more she withdrew, the more Mark framed himself as the stable one. He spoke to others about her mood. He mentioned stress casually. He planted concern without accusation. By the time Anna noticed, the narrative was already forming without her. She heard it in the way people spoke to her, softened voices, careful questions. Mark never raised his voice in front of others. He never left marks. Everything he did was subtle enough to deny. That was the most difficult part. Anna questioned herself constantly. She asked whether she was overreacting, whether this was simply pregnancy altering her emotions, whether she was imagining patterns where none existed. But the feeling did not fade. One night, after a disagreement over finances that lasted hours, Mark told her something that stayed with her. "If you can't handle this," he said, "maybe you aren't as stable as you think." The sentence was delivered calmly, almost kindly. Anna did not respond. She went to bed and stared at the ceiling until morning. That was the night she understood the danger of silence. Not physical danger, something quieter, more permanent. She realized that if she continued to say nothing, the story being built around her would replace her own voice completely. By the time she spoke, no one would believe her. The baby moved inside her that night. The sensation was gentle but unmistakable. It grounded her. Anna placed her hand over her abdomen and made a decision that frightened her more than any argument ever had. She would no longer allow others to define her reality. The divorce filing arrived weeks later. Mark framed it as necessary. He cited irreconcilable differences, emotional instability, concern for the future. He did not look at her when he said it. Anna read the papers slowly. Each line felt detached, clinical, distant from the life she had lived. There were clauses she did not recognize, assumptions she had never agreed to. She understood immediately what the filing was meant to do. It was not only to end the marriage, it was to establish a version of events where she was unreliable and he was reasonable. She was given the option to respond through counsel. Mark's team made that clear. They even suggested names. Anna declined. The decision was not impulsive. It came from weeks of reflection, from quiet nights, from moments where she imagined standing in a room full of strangers while others spoke for her. She could not accept that. She did not trust anyone else to carry the truth accurately. More importantly, she understood something Mark did not expect her to understand. The story had already begun. If she allowed others to frame it, she would spend the rest of her life correcting assumptions. The courtroom would not be kind to her. She knew that. A pregnant woman without a lawyer was an easy target, but remaining silent would be worse. Anna prepared alone. She organized her records, she reviewed timelines, she read procedural guides late into the night, not to master the law, but to avoid being erased by it. She was not looking to attack, she was looking to stand. By the time the hearing date arrived, her resolve was set. This was not about winning, it was about preserving truth while she still could. When she entered the courtroom and asked to speak for herself, the decision was already complete. She did not know how others would respond. She only knew that silence had already cost her enough, and she would not let it take her voice too. The courtroom shifted the moment Claire Morgan entered. She walked with purpose, heels clicking softly against the polished floor as she approached the witness stand. Her appearance was deliberate, composed, professional. She wore a neutral dress, understated jewelry, and an expression carefully calibrated between concern and restraint. She looked like someone who had nothing to hide. Mark Reynolds straightened in his chair when he saw her. His confidence deepened, visible in the way his shoulders relaxed. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Daniel Brooks rose from his seat. "Please state your name for the record," he said. "Claire Morgan." she replied. Brooks nodded. Miss Morgan, how do you know Mr. Reynolds? Claire glanced briefly toward Mark, then back at the court. We worked together. I was part of his professional circle. Her answer was smooth, polished, vague enough to avoid detail, specific enough to sound credible. Brooks continued. During that time, did you have frequent contact with his wife, Anna Reynolds? Yes, Claire said. I observed her behavior on multiple occasions. Anna sat still, her hands folded in her lap. She did not look at Claire. She did not react. She listened. Brooks asked Claire to describe those observations. Claire spoke calmly. She described Anna as withdrawn, emotional, unpredictable. She used language that sounded sympathetic while subtly undermining. She seemed overwhelmed, Claire said, often confused. She would forget conversations. She became easily agitated. The words settled into the room like fine dust. Brooks nodded, then turned slightly toward the judge. Miss Morgan, he said, were these changes consistent with someone experiencing emotional instability? In my opinion, Claire replied, yes. Mark watched the exchange with satisfaction. This was exactly what he had expected. The narrative was unfolding cleanly. A composed witness, a fragile wife, a husband positioned as patient and concerned. Anna remained silent. She did not interrupt. She did not object. She let the testimony continue uninterrupted. Brooks pressed forward. Miss Morgan, he said, did you ever witness Mr. Reynolds behave in a threatening or abusive manner toward his wife? No, Claire said immediately. Never. Her answer was firm, immediate, practiced. And did Mr. Reynolds ever express concern about his wife's condition? Yes, Claire said. Frequently. He was worried about the stress on the pregnancy. Brooks let the silence linger after that answer, allowing it to carry weight. Mark leaned back, crossing his arms. This was the story he wanted on the record. When Brooks finished, he returned to his seat. The judge turned his attention to Anna. Miss Reynolds, he said, you may question the witness. Anna stood slowly. She did not approach the stand right away. She remained where she was, creating space between herself and the testimony that had just been delivered. Yes, Your Honor, she said. She turned to face Claire for the first time. Miss Morgan, Anna began, her tone calm. You said you observed my behavior on multiple occasions. Can you tell the court how often you were present in my home? Claire hesitated for just a fraction of a second. I was not present in your home, she said, but I saw you at events and meetings. Anna nodded. So, your observations were limited to public settings? Yes. And you did not live with us? No. And you did not attend my medical appointments? No. Anna paused briefly. Then your testimony about my emotional state is based on what you saw in limited professional environments, Anna said. Not on my daily life. Claire shifted slightly. Yes, but patterns can be observed. Anna nodded again. Thank you. Is still 9. She did not press further. Mark frowned slightly. He had expected confrontation. He had expected emotion. Instead, Anna returned to her seat. The courtroom murmured softly. Daniel Brooks stood again. Your Honor, he said, we would like to address the broader issue of Miss Reynolds' capacity. The phrase was deliberate. He spoke about stress, about pregnancy, about mental strain. He referenced general studies without citing specifics. He spoke as though the conclusion was obvious. Anna listened without interruption. She noted the language being used, the assumptions embedded in each sentence, the way words like unstable and emotional were introduced without direct accusation. She also noted what was missing. Dates were vague, descriptions were general, claims were broad. Mark did not notice these gaps. He was too focused on the tone of the room. He smiled again when Brooks concluded. From his perspective, the strategy was working. The judge acknowledged the argument without comment. Miss Reynolds, he said, do you wish to respond at this time? Yes, Anna said, standing once more. She did not argue. She did not deny emotions. She did not defend her character. I would like to clarify the scope of the testimony, she said. Miss Morgan has described impressions, not facts. I ask that this distinction be noted. The judge nodded slightly. So noted, he said. Anna sat. Mark leaned toward Brooks and whispered something, clearly amused. She is not fighting back, he thought. She does not even understand what she is facing. But Anna was not retreating. She was observing. She replayed Claire's answers in her mind. The immediate denial, the careful phrasing, the lack of specificity. She noted the timing, the way Claire answered questions about Mark without hesitation, but paused when describing her own proximity. These details mattered. For now, Anna did nothing with them. She understood that revealing awareness too early would serve no purpose. She was not here to surprise. She was here to build. The judge announced a brief recess. As people stood, Mark stretched comfortably. He looked at Anna as he passed her row. "You should have gotten a lawyer," he said quietly, smiling. Anna did not respond. She remained seated, her attention focused inward. She had learned something important. The betrayal was no longer hidden, and the story Mark believed was solid had begun to show its seams. But he did not see it yet. And that was exactly where Anna needed him to be. When the court reconvened, the atmosphere felt different. The earlier confidence that had filled the room had thinned, replaced by quiet attention. The spectators were no longer watching for entertainment. They were listening. Anna Reynolds stood when the judge acknowledged her. "Your Honor," she said, "I would like permission to present my case in a structured sequence." The request was calm, deliberate, not defensive. Daniel Brooks shifted in his seat. He had expected emotional reactions. He had prepared for objections and interruptions. He had not prepared for organization. The judge looked at Anna carefully. "Explain what you mean by structured," he said. "I will present a timeline," Anna replied. "Specific dates, actions, and documented changes. I will not argue character. I will show sequence." The judge paused briefly, then nodded. "You may proceed," he said, "but you will remain within procedural limits." "Yes, Your Honor." I won to do. Anna stepped forward, placing a thin folder on the table before her. It was not thick, it was not dramatic, it did not contain stacks of paper meant to overwhelm. It contained order. "I will begin with the date of my pregnancy confirmation," she said. "March 4th of last year." She spoke clearly, making eye contact with the judge, not the audience. "Before that date," Anna continued, "there were no restrictions placed on my schedule, finances, or communication. After that date, there were." She did not raise her voice. She did not pause for effect. She listed dates, doctor visits, conversations, requests framed as suggestions, suggestions framed as expectations. On April 15th, Mark asked for access to her appointment schedule. On May 2nd, he suggested reducing contact with friends due to stress. On June 10th, he asked to review expenses before they were processed. Each item was presented without commentary. Daniel Brooks rose to object. "Your Honor," he said, "these are normal marital discussions. There is no evidence of coercion." The judge raised a hand. "Miss Reynolds," he said, "continue. Mr. Brooks will have an opportunity to respond." Anna nodded. She continued through the summer. As the pregnancy progressed, she said, the requests increased in frequency and consequence. She described the shift from suggestion to expectation, from expectation to consequence. "If I resisted," she said, "I was told I was being irresponsible. If I expressed discomfort, I was told I was emotional." She stopped there. The judge looked at Brooks. "You may cross-examine later," he said. "For now, allow the sequence." Brooks sat down. Mark watched Anna with narrowed eyes. This was not what he had anticipated. There was no accusation to disprove, no emotional outburst to undermine, just time. Anna turned a page in her folder. "Financial access changed on July 1st, she said. "I was informed that joint approval would be required for withdrawals above a certain amount." She stated the amount. She stated the date. She stated the context. The explanation given was preparation for the child. She did not argue the reason. She documented the change. The courtroom was silent. Anna did not glance toward Mark. She did not look toward Claire. She addressed the court as though the others were not present. Communication access changed in August, she continued. I was discouraged from attending social gatherings. Calls were described as unnecessary stress. She paused briefly. I was not prohibited, she said. I was redirected. The judge leaned forward slightly. Explain, he said. Anna met his gaze. I was told that making independent decisions was selfish, she said. That stress could harm the baby. That cooperation was expected. She returned to her seat. Mark shifted, his confidence no longer effortless. Daniel Brooks stood. Your Honor, he said, this testimony is subjective. There is no proof of intent. The judge nodded. That may be addressed, he said. Miss Reynolds, proceed. Anna stood again. I am not alleging intent, she said. I am presenting pattern. She continued. When concerns were raised by others, she said, they were raised without my input. She described overhearing conversations. Comments relayed indirectly. Concern expressed in her absence. I became a topic, she said, not a participant. She paused, allowing the statement to settle. The judge glanced at the record. Miss Reynolds, he said, do you have documentation to support these dates? Yes, Your Honor. She handed copies to the clerk. Appointment confirmations, bank notifications, calendar entries, they were simple, unembellished. The judge reviewed them briefly. Accepted, he said. Mark exhaled sharply. This was no longer comfortable. The judge turned his attention back to Anna. Continue, he said. Anna did. She described the weeks leading up to the filing, the tension, the silence, the conversations that ended without resolution. She did not dramatize. She did not recount arguments word for word. She explained change. I understood that if I continued to remain quiet, she said, a version of events would be created without me. She stopped there. The judge nodded. Daniel Brooks stood again, clearly frustrated. Your Honor, he said, this is a personal narrative. There is no evidence of wrongdoing. The judge's response was measured. Mr. Brooks, he said, the court will determine relevance. Miss Reynolds is establishing context. He turned to Anna. Miss Reynolds, he said, you will limit further testimony to factual sequence. Yes, Your Honor. Mark leaned forward now, his earlier amusement gone. Anna returned to her seat, having completed her presentation. She did not ask for sympathy. She did not request immediate judgment. She had done what she intended. She had set the frame. The courtroom no longer saw a disorganized individual. They saw a woman who knew where she was standing. The judge called for a brief pause before proceeding. As the room shifted, whispers resumed, but they were different now. Not dismissive. Curious. Mark remained seated, his jaw tight. For the first time since the hearing began, the balance had shifted, and everyone in the room felt it. When the session resumed, Anna Reynolds did not begin with a statement. She waited. The pause unsettled the rhythm of the courtroom. Daniel Brooks adjusted the papers in front of him, expecting another structured explanation or a continuation of the timeline. Mark Reynolds leaned back, watching Anna with guarded attention. The judge nodded toward her. Miss Reynolds, he said, you may proceed. Anna stood and walked slowly toward the witness stand. I would like to recall Miss Claire Morgan, she said. Claire stiffened slightly as her name was called again. She returned to the stand with the same controlled posture as before, but the ease she had carried earlier had dulled. She clasped her hands together, eyes forward. Anna remained standing several feet away. Miss Morgan, she said calmly, earlier you testified that you observed changes in my emotional behavior. I would like to ask you a few clarifying questions. 11. Daniel Brooks rose halfway from his chair, then sat back down. He had no immediate basis to object. Claire nodded. Of course. Anna did not raise her voice. You stated that you saw me frequently at professional events, Anna said. Can you tell the court how many such events you attended with my husband between April and August of last year? Claire blinked once. I do not recall the exact number. Anna nodded. Was it more than 5? Claire hesitated. Possibly. More than 10. End quote. I am not certain. Anna did not press. "Do you recall attending the charity gala in June?" Anna asked. "Yes," Claire said. "And the quarterly investors' reception in July." "Yes." "Were there any others where you personally interacted with me?" Claire paused. "Those are the main ones." Anna let the answer sit. "So your direct observations of me occurred on 2 occasions," she said. Claire shifted slightly. "There may have been others." Anna nodded again. "But you can confirm too. It's not Inder's videos." "Yes." Anna did not argue. "On those 2 occasions," she continued, "were we engaged in extended conversation?" "No," Claire admitted. "Brief exchanges." "And were those exchanges private?" "No." Anna took a step back. "So your testimony regarding my emotional state is based on brief public interactions," she said, "not prolonged or private observation." Claire tightened her grip on her hands. "It was based on patterns." Anna met her gaze. "Patterns require consistency," she said. "2 moments do not establish one." Daniel Brooks stood abruptly. "Your Honor," he said, "the witness is being badgered." The judge raised a hand. "Miss Reynolds," he said, "limit commentary. Ask questions." Anna inclined her head. "Yes, Your Honor." She turned back to Claire. "Miss Morgan," she said, "you also testified that my husband expressed concern for my well-being. Did you ever hear him express concern directly to me in your presence?" "No," Claire said. "Did you ever hear him discourage others from contacting me?" "No." "Did you ever witness him restricting my access to finances?" "No." Anna nodded once. "Thank you," she said. She stepped away from the stand. The silence in the room felt heavier now. What Claire had said earlier had not been disproven, but it had been narrowed, reduced, contained. The judge made a brief note. "Miss Morgan," he said, "you may step down." "I've." Claire returned to her seat, her posture less certain than before. Mark shifted in his chair. This was not the collapse he had feared, but it was not the smooth affirmation he had expected either. Anna did not return to her seat. "I would like to call Sarah Lynn," she said. A woman in her late 30s approached the stand. Her movements were efficient, her expression neutral. She carried herself like someone accustomed to documentation. "Please state your name," the clerk instructed. "Sarah Lynn." "And your occupation?" "I am a senior account manager at Crestview Financial." Daniel Brooks stood immediately. "Your Honor," he said, "what is the relevance of this witness?" Anna responded before the judge could speak. "Miss Lynn managed accounts associated with our household," she said. "Her testimony relates to documented financial activity." The judge nodded. "Proceed," he said. Anna addressed Sarah Lynn directly. "Miss Lynn," she said, "were you responsible for overseeing transactions from our joint accounts?" "Yes," Sarah replied. "During the period between June and August of last year," Anna asked, "did you observe any unusual financial activity?" "Yes." Mark leaned forward. Daniel Brooks frowned. "What kind of activity?" Anna asked. "There were several transfers," Sarah said, "that were not consistent with prior spending patterns." Anna nodded. "Were these transfers authorized by both parties?" "It's tent." "No," Sarah said. "They were authorized by Mr. Reynolds alone." Daniel Brooks stood. "Your Honor," he said, "joint accounts often allow individual authorization." The judge gestured for him to continue later. "Miss Lynn," Anna said, "were these transfers disclosed to me at the time they occurred?" "No," Sarah replied. Anna took a breath. "Can you describe the nature of the transfers?" "They were payments to third parties," Sarah said. "Some were labeled as consulting fees. Others had no clear description." "Were any of these transfers made to Miss Claire Morgan?" Anna asked. The question cut sharply through the room. Claire looked up. Sarah checked her notes. "Yes," she said. "One payment was made to an account associated with Miss Morgan." Mark stood suddenly. "That is completely out of context," he said. The judge's voice was firm. "Mr. Reynolds," he said. "Sit down." Mark hesitated, then complied. Anna did not look at him. "Miss Lynn," she said, "was this payment disclosed to me?" "No." "Was it consistent with prior financial behavior?" "No." Anna stepped back. "Thank you," she said. Sarah Lynn was excused. The courtroom buzzed now. The energy had shifted from curiosity to alertness. Daniel Brooks stood, his composure strained. "Your Honor," he said, "this is a mischaracterization. There are legitimate explanations for these transactions." The judge nodded. "Those explanations may be presented," he said, "but the testimony stands." Anna returned to her seat. Mark no longer smiled. His jaw tightened as he leaned toward Brooks, whispering urgently. For the first time, the certainty he had carried into the courtroom was gone. What remained was irritation, and beneath it, something closer to fear. The truth had not exploded. It had cracked, and everyone in the room could hear it. The courtroom had grown quiet in a way that felt deliberate. The earlier tension had not dissipated. It had condensed. Conversations had stopped. Even the reporters had lowered their pens. Something in the air suggested that the next testimony would not be easily dismissed. Anna Reynolds stood when the judge acknowledged her. "Your Honor," she said, "I would like to call Dr. Ethan Cole." A man in his mid-40s rose from the second row and approached the stand. His movements were measured, professional. He carried no stack of papers, only a slim folder held neatly at his side. The clerk administered the oath. "Please state your name and occupation for the record," the clerk said. "Ethan Cole," he replied. "I am a board-certified obstetrician." Daniel Brooks straightened immediately. The judge gestured for Anna to proceed. "Dr. Cole," Anna said, "were you my primary obstetrician during my pregnancy?" "Yes," he answered. "How long had you been treating me?" "From the confirmation of pregnancy through the filing of this case." Anna nodded. "During that period," she said, "did you observe any changes in my health that concerned you?" "Yes," Dr. Cole said. "There were signs of elevated stress." Daniel Brooks rose. "Your Honor," he said, "stress during pregnancy is not uncommon." The judge nodded. "Dr. Cole," he said, "you may answer fully." Dr. Cole continued. "Stress can be common," he said, "but persistent stress of a certain intensity is not benign." Anna met his gaze. "Can you explain what you mean by persistent?" she asked. "Yes," Dr. Cole said. "In Miss Reynolds' case, we observed sustained elevations in blood pressure, sleep disruption, and anxiety responses that did not resolve between visits." Anna paused. "Did these symptoms present suddenly?" she asked. "Or gradually?" "They developed over time," Dr. Cole replied. "They correlated with changes in her reported living conditions." Daniel Brooks shifted. "Dr. Cole," Anna said, "did I report physical abuse?" "No," he said. "Did I report emotional pressure?" "Yes." Mark looked up sharply. Anna remained focused. "Can you describe that pressure?" she asked. Dr. Cole adjusted his glasses. "Miss Reynolds described feeling monitored," he said. "She reported increased restrictions on her activities and finances. She expressed concern about the impact of ongoing stress on the pregnancy." Daniel Brooks stood again. "Your Honor," he said, "these are subjective reports." The judge responded calmly. "Doctor," he said, "continue." Dr. Cole nodded. "In obstetrics," he said, "we do not rely solely on patient narrative. We evaluate physiological indicators alongside reported experience." Anna took a breath. "Were there objective indicators in my case?" she asked. "Yes," Dr. Cole said, "there were." Unquote. He described the data. Blood pressure readings taken over multiple visits. Stress-related symptoms recorded consistently. Notes documenting concern for maternal and fetal well-being. Anna did not embellish. "Did you advise any changes?" she asked. "Yes," Dr. Cole said. "I advised reducing sources of stress." "And did I follow that advice?" "Yes," he said. "To the extent possible." Anna paused. "Doctor," she said, "did you ever advise me that my symptoms were imaginary or exaggerated?" Inforted Beeson. "No." "Did you ever suggest that pregnancy hormones invalidated my experience?" "No." Mark shifted in his chair. Daniel Brooks leaned forward. "Dr. Cole," Brooks said, "did you ever diagnose Miss Reynolds with a mental disorder?" "No," Dr. Cole said plainly. "Did you ever recommend psychiatric intervention?" "No." Brooks frowned. "So what we are hearing," he said, "is that Miss Reynolds experienced stress during pregnancy, which is common." Dr. Cole met his gaze. "What is common," he said, "is temporary stress. What concerned me was duration and cause." The courtroom remained silent. Anna stood still. "Doctor," she said, "based on your medical judgment, can prolonged stress be harmful during pregnancy?" "Yes," Dr. Cole replied. "It can increase risk." "Risk to whom?" Anna asked. "To both mother and child." Mark exhaled sharply. Anna did not look at him. "Did I express concern about my living situation?" she asked. "Yes." 2-1 "Did I ask for documentation?" "Yes." Dr. Cole held up the folder. "These are my notes," he said. "They reflect ongoing concern." Daniel Brooks stood again. "Your Honor," he said, "medical notes do not establish fault." The judge nodded. "They establish context," he said. Anna turned back to Dr. Cole. "Doctor," she said, "in your professional opinion, did the conditions I described contribute to the stress you observed?" "Yes," Dr. Cole said. "Were those conditions self-imposed? Of the prices?" "No." Anna stepped back. "Thank you," she said. The judge made a note. "Dr. Cole," he said, "you may step down." As the doctor returned to his seat, the room felt different, not louder, more focused. Daniel Brooks stood, his confidence no longer effortless. "Your Honor," he said, "the defense would like to clarify that concern does not equal control." The judge looked at him. "That may be argued," he said, "but the testimony establishes medical relevance." He turned his attention to Mark. "Mr. Reynolds," the judge said, "you may respond through counsel." Brooks spoke quickly now, attempting to reframe the narrative. He emphasized care, responsibility, financial planning. He spoke of intentions rather than outcomes. Anna listened. She did not interrupt. She did not object. She noted one thing. Brooks avoided addressing duration. He avoided addressing correlation. He avoided addressing cause. The judge listened carefully. When Brooks finished, the judge addressed the court. "The testimony indicates sustained stress associated with environmental factors," he said. "This is relevant." Mark leaned toward Brooks, whispering urgently. His posture was no longer relaxed. Anna remained seated, her hand resting lightly on her abdomen. She did not feel victorious. She felt steady. The line had been crossed. Not by accusation, by evidence. The court recessed briefly. As people stood, the atmosphere remained restrained. No one whispered now. They were thinking. The ground beneath the case had shifted. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but decisively. And Mark Reynolds knew it. For the first time since the hearing began, the legal ground beneath him no longer felt solid. When the court reconvened, the room felt heavier than before. Not tense, focused. The evidence had been presented. The testimony had been heard. What remained was not discovery, but reckoning. Every person in the courtroom understood that the direction of the case now depended on how the facts would be held together. The judge looked down at the record, then lifted his eyes. "Miss Reynolds," he said, "you may address the court." Anna Reynolds stood. She did not carry notes in her hands. She did not step forward dramatically. She remained exactly where she was, grounding herself in stillness before she spoke. "I will be brief," she said. Her voice was calm, not quiet, measured. "I am not here to claim perfection," Anna continued. "I am not here to deny that pregnancy is difficult, or that stress exists in many forms." She paused. "But difficulty is not disorder, and stress is not consent." No one moved. Anna looked directly at the judge. "I did not come here to ask this court to punish my husband for who he is," she said. "I came here to ask this court to recognize what happened." She turned slightly, acknowledging the room without addressing any one person. "I have been described as emotional," she said. "That is not a charge, it is a label." Daniel Brooks shifted in his seat. Anna continued, "When I was calm, it was said I was withdrawn. When I spoke, it was said I was unstable. When I complied, it was said I needed guidance. When I questioned, it was said I was difficult." She took a breath. "At no point did my silence protect me." Mark Reynolds leaned back in his chair. He smiled. "It was not loud this time. It was tight, controlled. A performance meant for himself more than anyone else. Anna noticed it. She did not react. "I am not asking the court to decide whether my marriage was happy," she said. "I am asking the court to decide whether my voice mattered." Is wide. She placed her hand gently over her abdomen. "I am carrying a child," she said. "That does not make me fragile. It makes me accountable." The judge watched closely. "I organized my testimony because chaos benefits those who create it," Anna said. "I presented dates because memory can be dismissed, but sequence cannot." She did not look toward Mark. "I did not bring witnesses to speak for me," she continued. "I brought witnesses to confirm facts." The courtroom remained silent. Anna shifted her weight slightly, steadying herself. "There has been an effort to portray concern as care," she said. "But concern without consent becomes control." Daniel Brooks stood abruptly. "Your Honor," he said, "this is argument." The judge raised a hand. "Miss Reynolds," he said, "limit your remarks to summary." "Yes, Your Honor." Anna nodded once. "I will conclude," she said. She spoke more slowly now, each word deliberate. "I am not here because I could not survive my marriage," she said. "I am here because I refuse to disappear inside it." Mark's smile widened briefly. He leaned toward Brooks and whispered something, clearly amused. The judge's eyes flicked toward him. "Mr. Reynolds," the judge said, "you will maintain decorum." Mark lifted his hands slightly. "Of course, Your Honor," he said. "I am simply confident." The words echoed louder than he intended. Anna did not turn toward him. "I am aware that I do not look like what a winning party usually looks like," she said. "I do not have a legal team. I do not have resources equal to my husband's." She met the judge's gaze again. "But I have something else." She paused. "I have clarity." The words settled into the room. Anna lowered her hand and straightened. "I have not exaggerated. I have not embellished. I have not hidden behind language." She took a breath. "I have told you exactly what happened, in the order it happened, and I have allowed others to confirm it." She stopped speaking. The silence that followed was complete. The judge nodded slowly. "Thank you, Miss Reynolds," he said. "You may be seated." Anna returned to her chair. Mark leaned back again, his confidence resurfacing. He laughed softly. "Still no lawyer," he murmured to Brooks. "She thinks this is enough." Brooks did not respond immediately. The judge turned his attention to the defense. "Mr. Brooks," he said, "you may respond." Daniel Brooks stood. He spoke carefully now. Less theatrical, more restrained, he reiterated concern. He emphasized intention. He framed Mark's actions as protective. He reminded the court of the absence of physical harm. Mark nodded along. When Brooks finished, Mark could not help himself. He stood slightly, addressing the court with a casual air. "Your Honor," he said, "I believe this has gone far enough. We all see what this is." The judge looked at him. "Sit down, Mr. Reynolds," he said. Mark complied, but his expression remained confident. The courtroom had changed. Not in noise, in alignment. People were no longer watching Anna as a curiosity. They were watching Mark. Anna sat quietly, her breathing steady. She did not feel relief. She felt resolved. She had done exactly what she came to do. She had spoken without begging. She had stood without spectacle. She had allowed the truth to stand on its own. Whatever came next was no longer in her control. And that was enough. The judge reviewed his notes again. The room waited. For the first time since the case began, the waiting was not for Anna Reynolds to fail. It was for Mark Reynolds to answer. The courtroom had reached a point where silence carried weight. Not the uneasy silence of confusion, but the deliberate stillness that comes when every word must now be chosen with care. The evidence had been laid out. The arguments had been summarized. What remained was precision. The judge looked down at the file in front of him, then lifted his eyes. "Mr. Reynolds," he said, "I have a question." Mark straightened immediately. This was the moment he had been waiting for. "Yes, Your Honor," he said. The judge did not raise his voice. He did not shift in his seat. His tone was neutral, almost conversational. "You testified," the judge said, "that your actions were motivated by concern for your wife and unborn child." "That is correct." Mark replied without hesitation. You stated that the financial and social limitations described were protective measures, the judge continued. Yes, the judge nodded once. Then I want you to answer a simple question, he said. At the time these measures were implemented, did you believe your wife was incapable of making independent decisions? Mark paused. It was brief, almost imperceptible. Anna noticed it immediately. I believed she was under significant stress, Mark said carefully, which can impair judgment. The judge did not react. So your concern was capacity, he said. In part, Mark replied. The judge leaned forward slightly. Capacity implies assessment, he said. Did you seek a formal evaluation? No, Mark said. I did not think it necessary. Did you consult a medical professional regarding decision-making capacity? The judge asked. No. Did you request any legal determination limiting your wife's autonomy? The judge continued. No, Mark said again. The judge paused. Anna felt something shift inside her. The cadence of the questions, the order, the narrowing. It was familiar, not from the courtroom, but from memory. She had heard that rhythm before, years ago, in a different room, a different context. Her breath caught slightly, though her expression did not change. The judge continued. So, he said, you unilaterally imposed limitations based on your personal judgment. Mark frowned slightly. I was acting in good faith, he said, as a husband. The judge nodded. Good faith does not negate authority, he said, and authority requires justification, even rest. The words landed with quiet force. Anna felt her hand tighten against the fabric of her dress. The phrasing was unmistakable now. The structure, the precision, the way each question removed an escape rather than inviting one. She knew this voice. Not as a judge. As a father, she did not look up. She did not allow her face to betray the realization that had just crystallized in her mind. The man on the bench was not simply presiding over her case. He was the man who had taught her, long ago, that power without accountability always revealed itself under questioning. Her heartbeat steadied. The judge continued. Mr. Reynolds, he said, you have emphasized intent. Let us focus on outcome. He turned a page in the file. Your wife's physician documented sustained stress correlated with environmental factors, he said. You acknowledge implementing those factors. I did what I thought was best, Mark said. That was not the question, the judge replied calmly. Mark shifted. Yes, he said. I acknowledge that. The judge nodded. So, he said, you acted without medical directive, without legal authority, and without consent. Mark opened his mouth, then closed it. Anna watched him carefully. This was not collapse. It was containment. The judge was not accusing. He was defining. Mark attempted to recover. I was protecting my family, he said. Sometimes leadership requires difficult decisions. The judge met his gaze. Leadership, he said, is not exemption. The courtroom remained utterly still. Anna lowered her eyes. Inside, something profound settled. Not relief, not hope, recognition. She had wondered for years whether she would ever see him again, whether he would recognize her, whether she would recognize him. She had not expected this. Not here, not like this. But she did not allow the moment to change her posture. She did not soften. She did not harden. She remained exactly as she had been throughout the hearing. A woman speaking for herself. The judge turned his attention back to the record. Mr. Reynolds, he said, one final question. Mark swallowed. At any point, the judge said, did your wife consent to the limitations you imposed? Mark hesitated again. The pause was longer this time. No, he said finally. She did not explicitly consent. The judge nodded. That is all, he said. Mark exhaled sharply and sat back. The damage was done. Not publicly, not dramatically, but structurally. The framework Mark had relied on had been dismantled. Not by accusation. By definition, Anna remained seated. Her hands rested calmly in her lap. She felt the weight of the moment, but she did not indulge it. She understood something now that anchored her even more firmly than before. Whatever happened next, would not happen because of who the judge was to her. It would happen because of what had already been established. The judge looked down at his notes again, his expression unchanged. "Counsel," he said, addressing Daniel Brooks, "you may respond to the court's inquiry if you wish." Brooks stood, his confidence visibly reduced. He attempted to reframe the exchange, emphasizing intention, cultural expectations, marital norms. The judge listened without interruption. When Brooks finished, the judge acknowledged him with a brief nod. "Noted," he said. He turned his attention back to Anna. "Miss Reynolds," he said, "do you have anything to add in response to the court's questions?" Anna stood. She did not mention the questions. She did not mention the answers. She did not mention the man on the bench. "No, Your Honor," she said. "I do not." The judge nodded. "Very well," he said. Anna returned to her seat. The room exhaled collectively, though no one spoke. Mark sat rigid now, his earlier confidence gone. He stared forward, his jaw clenched. He did not look at Anna. He did not look at the judge. Anna lowered her gaze briefly, placing her hand once more over her abdomen. Inside her, something steadied completely. She had recognized him, but she had not relied on him, and that distinction mattered more than anything else in that room. The judge called for a short recess before proceeding further. As people stood, conversations resumed quietly, cautiously. No one understood exactly what had just shifted, but everyone could feel it. The case had crossed an invisible line, and there was no going back. When the court reconvened, the room carried a restrained tension that no one tried to hide. The judge took his seat and reviewed the file in silence. The pause was longer than before, deliberate, careful. It signaled that the hearing had moved beyond testimony and into consequence. "Before we proceed," the judge said, "there is a procedural matter that must be addressed." Daniel Brooks looked up sharply. Mark Reynolds shifted in his chair. The judge continued, "During the course of this hearing, information has been brought to the court's attention regarding a prior familial connection between the bench and one of the parties." A ripple moved through the room. Anna Reynolds remained still. "This matter was not disclosed earlier," the judge said, "because it was not known to be relevant until a specific threshold was reached." Mark's head snapped up. "What threshold?" he asked. The judge looked directly at him. "Establishment of fact," he said. "Not speculation." He turned to the clerk. "Please enter into the record that the court is acknowledging a potential conflict of interest." The clerk complied. Daniel Brooks stood immediately. "Your Honor," he said, "we request clarification." "You will receive it," the judge replied. "In order." The judge addressed the courtroom. "For transparency," he said, "I will state the nature of the connection. Miss Anna Reynolds is my biological daughter." Again, the room froze. No gasp, no outcry. Shock settled silently, like dust. Mark stared at the bench, disbelief spreading across his face. "That is not possible," he said. The judge did not respond to the remark. "Given this disclosure," the judge continued, "the court must determine whether the proceedings to this point remain valid." Daniel Brooks moved quickly. "Your Honor," he said, "this entire hearing is now compromised." The judge raised a hand. "Sit down, Mr. Brooks," he said calmly. "The court will address this." He turned his attention back to the record. "The timing of disclosure matters," he said. "This court has not rendered a verdict. It has facilitated the presentation of evidence." He looked toward Anna. "Miss Reynolds," he said, "did you have any prior knowledge that this court would be presiding over your case?" "No, Your Honor," Anna said. "Did you select this court?" he asked. "No." The judge nodded. He turned to Daniel Brooks. "Mr. Brooks," he said, "did your client raise objection to venue or assignment at the outset?" "No," Brooks admitted. "Did you request recusal before today?" the judge asked. "No." The judge nodded again. "Then the court will proceed according to law," he said. He paused. "In order to eliminate any appearance of bias, I will recuse myself from issuing the final ruling," he said. "However, the findings of fact entered into the record remain intact." Mark stood abruptly. "You cannot do that," he said. "This is a setup." The judge's voice sharpened. "Mr. Reynolds," he said, "one more interruption, and you will be removed." Mark sat back down, his face pale. The judge continued, "The record reflects that the petitioner has established a coherent, evidence-based account of events," he said. "It also reflects material inconsistencies in the respondent's position." He turned to the clerk. "Arrange for immediate reassignment to a senior judge for final disposition," he said. The clerk nodded. The courtroom buzzed now, but it was controlled. The judge addressed the new matter directly. "Before reassignment," he said, "this court will address ancillary actions." Daniel Brooks looked uneasy. "The testimony presented raises concerns beyond civil dissolution," the judge said, "specifically regarding financial conduct and coercive behavior." He turned to the clerk again. "Refer the financial records to the appropriate investigative authority," he said. Mark's breath came fast now. "This is outrageous," he said. "You cannot do this." The judge looked at him steadily. "The court is not doing this," he said. "The evidence is." Anna sat quietly. She did not look at the judge. She did not look at Mark. She did not look at the spectators. She focused on breathing. The reassigned judge entered shortly thereafter. Older, impassive, efficient, he reviewed the summary provided and addressed the parties. "I have reviewed the record," the new judge said. "The findings of fact stand." He looked at Mark. "The respondent has failed to rebut the established sequence of control, financial concealment, and unilateral decision-making." Mark shook his head. "This is not fair," he said. The judge continued. "The court grants the petitioner full legal autonomy," he said. "All temporary financial restrictions are lifted effective immediately." Anna's shoulders relaxed slightly. "The petitioner retains primary decision-making authority regarding the unborn child," the judge said. Mark's jaw tightened. "Additionally," the judge continued, "the respondent is ordered to comply with full financial disclosure and is prohibited from interfering with the petitioner's personal or financial access." He paused. "The court further orders that the matter of undisclosed transfers be investigated separately." The words landed hard. Mark stood again. "You are destroying me," he said. The judge did not react. "This court does not destroy," he said. "It records." He turned to Anna. "Miss Reynolds," he said, "your request for relief is granted." Anna stood. "Thank you, Your Honor," she said. The judge nodded. The gavel struck once. "This hearing is concluded." The room erupted into movement. Reporters rushed for exits. Phones were raised. Whispers turned into conversations. Mark remained seated. Daniel Brooks leaned toward him, speaking urgently, but Mark did not respond. His face had lost its color. Anna gathered her things quietly. As she stood, she felt eyes on her from every direction. She did not acknowledge them. She walked toward the exit with steady steps. The judge who had revealed the truth remained seated, reviewing documents as though nothing extraordinary had occurred. There was no glance exchanged, no signal, no reconciliation. That would come later, or not at all. Outside the courtroom, Anna paused briefly. She placed her hand on her abdomen. The fight was over, not because of a name, not because of a title, but because the truth had been strong enough to stand on its own. Behind her, Mark Reynolds remained inside, alone, and, for the first time, truly powerless. The hallway outside the courtroom felt larger than it had before. Anna Reynolds stepped through the doors and stopped, not because she was uncertain, but because the noise ended there. The echo of voices faded behind her. The hum of movement softened. What remained was space, clean, still. She did not raise her head to the cameras. She did not answer the questions that rushed toward her. She walked past them with measured steps, her hand resting lightly over her abdomen, her posture steady. For the first time in months, she was not bracing herself. Outside, the air was cool. It touched her face gently, as if reminding her that the world extended beyond legal language and sealed records. She paused at the top of the steps and let herself breathe. The case was over. Not emotionally, not in memory, but in truth. The court had recorded what happened. It had entered her words into permanence. No one could erase that now. Anna descended the steps slowly and crossed the plaza. A driver waited at the curb. She thanked him quietly and took her seat in the back, watching the courthouse recede through the window as the car pulled away. Inside the vehicle, silence returned. It did not feel empty. It felt earned. Her phone vibrated once. A message from a number she had not saved, but recognized. "If you are willing, we can talk later." She did not respond immediately. She placed the phone face down and looked out the window again. The city moved on as it always did. Pedestrians crossed streets. Cars idled at lights. Life did not pause for justice. It continued around it. That was how she knew the outcome was real. When the car stopped at her apartment, Anna took a moment before getting out. The building stood quiet, ordinary. Nothing about it suggested the magnitude of what had happened that day. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The space was clean and spare. Temporary. It did not yet feel like home, but it no longer felt like refuge either. It felt like a beginning. Anna placed her bag down and sat on the couch. She removed her shoes carefully and leaned back, closing her eyes for a brief moment. The baby moved. The sensation was stronger now, more deliberate. She smiled faintly and placed both hands over her stomach. "We are okay," she whispered. Later that evening, she agreed to meet. They chose a place that was neutral. A quiet cafe near the river, far from the courthouse, far from memory. When she arrived, she saw him already seated near the window. William Hart did not stand when she entered. He waited. Anna approached slowly and took the chair across from him. They looked at each other for a moment without speaking. He looked older than she remembered, or perhaps she was seeing him without distance for the first time. His hair was grayer now. His expression was controlled, but not distant. "I did not know," he said quietly. "I know," Anna replied. He nodded. "I would have recused myself immediately," he said. "If I had known earlier." "I believe you," she said. They sat in silence again. There was no rush to fill it. "I recognized your questions," Anna said finally. "Not today. Years ago." William's eyes softened slightly. "I taught you how to listen," he said. "You taught yourself how to speak." Anna did not smile, but something eased inside her. "I did not come to court because of you," she said. "I know," he replied. "That mattered to me," she said. "It mattered to me too," he said. They did not discuss the case further. There was nothing left to say about it. The law had taken its place. The record would stand. They spoke instead about time, about absence, about choices that had consequences no verdict could address. When they parted, there was no embrace, no promise, only understanding. It was enough. Back at home, Anna prepared for sleep. She moved carefully, deliberately, as though her body and mind were relearning how to occupy the same space without tension. She stood by the window for a moment before turning off the light. The city glowed below. Somewhere across it, Mark Reynolds was facing his own silence. Court orders, investigations, consequences that could not be managed with money or posture. Anna did not think about him. She lay down and rested one hand over her abdomen, listening to the steady rhythm beneath her palm. Tomorrow would bring appointments, paperwork, decisions, but not fear. She had spoken when silence would have erased her. She had stood when standing felt impossible. She had trusted the truth without knowing who would hear it. That was the victory. Not the verdict, not the name on the bench. The knowledge that she had not disappeared. As sleep came, Anna felt something unfamiliar settle into her chest. Peace. Not the kind that forgets what happened. The kind that survives it.
He dragged her out of the mansion by her arm, throwing her onto the wet asphalt while thunder cracked overhead. She was 8 months pregnant, penniless, and begging for mercy. Marcus Thorne, the city's most arrogant billionaire, laughed as he tossed her wedding ring into the mud, wrapping his arm around his mistress. He thought he had won. He thought Taylor was garbage. But he made a fatal mistake. He didn't know that the rain-soaked woman he just discarded was about to be picked up by the one man Marcus feared most in the world. 3 days later, the boardroom doors opened, and Marcus stopped breathing. Because the new owner of his company wasn't just a stranger, it was his wife. The grandfather clock in the foyer of the Thorne estate chimed midnight, but the sound was drowned out by the ferocious storm battering the windows. Inside, the atmosphere was even colder than the freezing rain outside. Taylor Thorne stood near the marble staircase, her hand instinctively cradling her swollen stomach. At 8 months pregnant, her petite frame was heavy, her ankles swollen, and her back aching. But none of that compared to the sharp pain in her chest as she looked at her husband, Marcus Thorne. Marcus was a man carved from ice and greed. As the CEO of Thorne Enterprises, he was used to discarding things that no longer served a purpose. Tonight, that thing was Taylor. "You have 10 minutes, Marcus said, his voice devoid of emotion. He took a sip of his scotch, not even looking at her. "Pack your essentials. Leave the jewelry I bought you. Leave the cards. Just get out." Taylor's lips trembled. "Marcus, please. The doctor said the baby is coming soon. My blood pressure is high. You can't throw us out in a storm." A sharp, mocking laugh echoed from the living room sofa. Jessica Vane, a supermodel with legs for days and a heart made of coal, uncrossed her legs and smirked. She was wearing a silk robe. Taylor's silk robe. "Oh, honey," Jessica purred, walking over to drape herself over Marcus's shoulder. "He isn't throwing us out. He's throwing you out. Marcus and I need the nursery for our future, not for some mistake you're carrying." Taylor felt the blood drain from her face. "Mistake? This is his son." Marcus finally turned to look at her. His eyes were dark, filled with a mixture of annoyance and disgust. He walked over, towering over her. "Is it? You were a dull charity case when I married you, Taylor. I needed a respectable wife to secure the board's vote 3 years ago. I have the vote now. I don't need the anchor." He pulled a document from his jacket pocket and slapped it against her chest. "Divorce papers. Signed. I've frozen the joint accounts. You get nothing. That's what happens when you violate the prenup." "I never violated anything," Taylor cried, clutching the papers. "Infidelity," Marcus lied smoothly. "Jessica saw you with the gardener." "That's a lie," Taylor screamed, her voice cracking. "She's lying to you." Marcus didn't argue. He simply grabbed Taylor's arm. His grip was bruising. He didn't drag her to the bedroom to pack. He dragged her to the front door. "Marcus, stop! You're hurting me!" He wrenched the heavy oak door open. The wind howled, spraying freezing rain into the warm foyer. With a shove that was shocking in its violence, he pushed his pregnant wife out onto the stone steps. Taylor stumbled, her knees hitting the wet pavement hard. A jagged bolt of lightning lit up the sky, illuminating her tear-streaked face. "Marcus!" she wailed, trying to stand up, slipping on the slick stone. "Please, where will I go?" Marcus stood in the doorway, the warm, golden light framing his silhouette. Jessica appeared beside him, holding a glass of wine, smiling as she watched Taylor struggle. "Figure it out, Ellie," Marcus sneered. "Go back to the gutter I found you in." He slammed the door. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Then came the sound of the heavy deadbolt sliding into place. Taylor sat in the freezing rain, the water soaking through her thin maternity dress instantly. She gasped for air, panic seizing her throat. She had no phone, no money, no coat, and a baby kicking furiously against her ribs, as if sensing his mother's terror. She dragged herself to the gate, shivering so violently her teeth chattered. She walked aimlessly down the long, winding driveway of the exclusive Hamptons estate, the darkness swallowing her whole. She walked for what felt like hours. Her vision began to blur. The cold was seeping into her bones, slowing her heart. "I'm going to die here," she thought. "My baby is going to die here." Her legs gave out on the side of the desolate highway. She collapsed into the wet grass, curling into a ball to protect her stomach. The world began to fade to black. The last thing she saw was a pair of blinding headlights cutting through the rain, coming straight toward her, and the screech of tires on wet asphalt. The sleek black Maybach skidded to a halt inches from Taylor's unconscious body. The driver, a burly man named Frank, jumped out with an umbrella, but the rear door opened before he could reach the handle. A man stepped out. He was tall, dressed in a bespoke charcoal suit that cost more than most people's houses. He didn't run. He moved with a predatory grace, ignoring the rain ruining his Italian leather shoes. Julian Sterling. If Marcus Thorne was a shark in the business world, Julian Sterling was the leviathan that ate sharks. He was the CEO of Sterling Global, a conglomerate that owned half of New York. He was known as the Ice King, because no one had ever seen him smile, and no one had ever seen him show mercy. Julian looked down at the woman in the mud. He saw the bruising on her arm, the soaked dress, and the undeniable curve of her pregnancy. "Is she dead?" Frank asked, rushing over. Julian crouched down, checking her pulse. His fingers were warm against her freezing skin. "No, but she's hypothermic. Help me get her into the car. Careful with her stomach." Julian, a man who never touched anyone, a man who famously hated physical contact, scooped Taylor up into his arms. She was dangerously light, despite the pregnancy. Inside the warm, leather-scented interior of the Maybach, Julian stripped off his suit jacket and wrapped it around her. "Hospital?" Frank asked, looking in the rearview mirror. Julian looked at the woman's face. It was pale, blue-lipped, but hauntingly beautiful. He recognized her. Not personally, but he knew the face. This was Taylor Thorne, the wife of Marcus Thorne, the man Julian was currently in the process of hostilely acquiring. A dark, calculating look crossed Julian's eyes. This wasn't just a rescue, this was leverage. But as Taylor whimpered in her sleep, clutching his shirt, something shifted in Julian's chest, a protective instinct he hadn't felt in decades. "No," Julian said, his voice deep and resonant. "Take us to the penthouse. Call Dr. Aris, tell him to meet us there immediately, and get a private investigation team on Marcus Thorne. I want to know why his wife is dying on the side of the road at 1 a.m. 2 days later, Taylor woke up. She wasn't on the wet pavement. She was lying in a bed that felt like a cloud, covered in silk sheets that smelled of sandalwood and rain. The room was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline. She sat up, gasping, her hands flying to her stomach. "He's fine," a voice came from the corner of the room. Taylor froze. Sitting in a leather wingback chair was a man reading a financial newspaper. He lowered the paper, revealing piercing grey eyes and a jawline sharp enough to cut glass. Who are you?" Taylor whispered. "Julian Sterling," he replied, standing up. He walked over to the bed, pouring a glass of water from a crystal carafe. "Drink?" Taylor took the glass with trembling hands. She knew the name. Everyone knew the name. Julian Sterling was the most powerful man on the East Coast. "Why am I here?" she asked. "Because my driver almost ran over you," Julian said flatly. "And because your husband left you to die." Taylor flinched at the mention of Marcus. The memories came flooding back. The humiliation, the cold, the laughter of the mistress. She put the water down and covered her face, sobbing quietly. Julian didn't comfort her with empty words. He waited. When her sobbing subsided, he handed her a tablet. "Watch," he said. Taylor looked at the screen. It was a live news broadcast. Marcus Thorne was standing at a podium, Jessica Vane by his side. "It is with a heavy heart that I announce my wife, Taylor, has chosen to leave our home due to her personal struggles with mental health," Marcus told the cameras, looking devastatingly sad. "She has disappeared, and we are worried. We ask for privacy." "He's lying!" Taylor screamed at the screen. "He threw me out." "I know," Julian said. He took the tablet back. "He's controlling the narrative. He's painting you as unstable so that when you try to claim alimony or child support, no judge will believe you. He plans to declare you unfit and take the child once it's born." Taylor went cold. "He wants my baby?" "He wants the heir," Julian corrected. "He doesn't care about the baby. He needs a legacy." Taylor looked up at Julian, desperation in her eyes. "Mr. Sterling, please, I have nothing. I can't fight him. He's a billionaire." Julian leaned in, placing his hands on the bed rails, boxing her in. His eyes locked onto hers. "He is a billionaire, yes. But I am the one who signs his paychecks. He just doesn't know it yet. My company secretly bought the majority shares of Thorn Enterprises this morning." Taylor's eyes widened. "I have a proposition for you, Taylor," Julian said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. "I need a wife. My board of directors is pressuring me to settle down, to improve my public image before I launch my political campaign. You need protection, and you need revenge." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. It wasn't just a diamond. It was a rare, blue diamond worth more than the entire Thorn estate. "Marry me," Julian said. "Not for love, for power. Marry me, and tomorrow we will walk into Thorn Enterprises. You won't just be his ex-wife. You will be the wife of the chairman. You will be his boss." Taylor stared at the ring. She thought of Marcus's cruel laugh. She thought of Jessica wearing her robe. She thought of her unborn son who almost died in the cold. The soft, timid Taylor died on that roadside. She reached out and took the ring. "When do we start?" Julian smirked, a rare, terrifying expression. "Right now. Get dressed, Mrs. Sterling. We have a board meeting to crash." The next morning, the penthouse was a hive of activity. Julian hadn't been joking. If Taylor was going to be Mrs. Sterling, she had to look untouchable. A team of stylists, makeup artists, and tailors, flown in from Paris and Milan overnight, swarmed the living room. Racks of designer maternity wear filled the space. Taylor stood in front of a floor-to-length mirror, looking at her reflection. She looked tired. Her eyes were puffy, her skin pale. She felt small. "Fix it," Julian's voice cut through the room. He was leaning against the doorframe, sipping espresso, watching the team with hawk-like intensity. "She doesn't look like a victim. She looks like a queen. Make it happen." The head stylist, a flamboyant man named Paolo, nodded vigorously. "Of course, Mr. Sterling. We will bring out the fire." For the next 4 hours, Taylor was scrubbed, polished, and painted. They cut her mousy, limp hair into a sharp, sophisticated bob that framed her jawline. They applied makeup that highlighted her cheekbones and hid the sorrow in her eyes. When it came time to dress, Paolo held up a dress that made Taylor gasp. It wasn't the beige or grey, shapeless sacks Marcus used to make her wear. It was a deep, blood-red maternity dress made of structured silk. It was elegant, powerful, and screamed money. "Put it on," Julian commanded softly. When Taylor emerged, the room went silent. The red dress hugged her bump proudly, turning what Marcus called a burden into a symbol of life and strength. She wore towering heels, which she hesitated on, but Julian insisted she needed the height to look Marcus in the eye. Julian walked over to her. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened. He reached into a velvet box and pulled out a necklace, a string of diamonds so heavy it felt cold against her throat. "This belonged to my grandmother," Julian said, clasping it around her neck. "She was the toughest woman I ever knew. Now it protects you. Taylor touched the diamonds, her hands trembling. Julian, why are you doing this? Really? It can't just be for the board. Julian paused, his hand lingering near her shoulder. I despise bullies, Taylor, and I see potential in you. Marcus tried to bury you. He didn't realize you were a seed. He offered her his arm. The car is waiting. We have a wedding to attend first. Then we go to war. They were married in a private, civil ceremony at City Hall. No guests. Just Frank, the driver, as a witness. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Taylor felt a strange surge of electricity. She was no longer Taylor Thorne, the discarded wife. She was Taylor Sterling. As they got back into the car, Julian handed her a file. Read this. It's the agenda for today's emergency board meeting at Thorne Enterprises. Marcus is planning to announce a merger with a shell company owned by Jessica Vane. He's trying to funnel the company's assets into her name before the divorce settlement. Taylor's eyes flashed with anger. He's stealing the company. My father helped him build that company. Exactly, Julian said, checking his watch. We arrive in 20 minutes. When we walk through those doors, you don't look down. You don't stutter. You are the owner of 51% of that company via my acquisition. You own him. Taylor took a deep breath, placing a hand on her stomach. For you, she thought. Mommy is going to fight for you. The conference room at Thorne Enterprises was thick with tension. The 20 board members sat around the long mahogany table, whispering nervously. Marcus Thorne sat at the head of the table, looking triumphant. He wore a smug grin, tapping his expensive pen against the glass of water. Jessica Vane sat to his right, officially listed as a creative consultant, but everyone knew she was just there to gloat. Gentlemen, ladies, Marcus began, standing up. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Today marks a new era for Thorne Enterprises. As you know, I have been dealing with difficult personal matters. My unstable ex-wife has abandoned her duties. A murmur went through the room. However, Marcus continued, his voice rising, we must move forward. I am proposing a strategic partnership with Vane Global. This will secure our assets and bankrupt the shareholders while lining your pockets. A deep, baritone voice boomed from the entrance. The heavy double doors swung open with a bang. Every head turned. Marcus froze, his pen hovering in midair. Walking into the room was Julian Sterling. The atmosphere instantly shifted. The air seemed to be sucked out of the room. Julian Sterling didn't just walk, he marched, and he wasn't alone. Walking beside him, her arm looped through his, was a woman in a stunning blood-red dress. She looked radiant, fierce, and utterly terrifying. It took Marcus a full 10 seconds to recognize her. Taylor, he choked out, his face losing all color. Jessica dropped her phone. What? What is she doing here? And why is she with him? Taylor didn't say a word. She walked alongside Julian until they reached the head of the table. Julian pulled out the chair directly opposite Marcus, the chair reserved for the chairman of the board. He didn't sit. He gestured for Taylor to sit. She sat down gracefully, smoothing her dress over her stomach, staring dead at Marcus. You can't be in here, Marcus shouted, recovering from his shock. Security! Get this woman out of here. She's trespassing. Sit down, Marcus, Julian said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a sledgehammer. If anyone is trespassing, it's you. Excuse me. Marcus laughed nervously. This is my company. You're Julian Sterling. I know who you are, but you have no business here. Julian signaled to his assistant, who was handing out folders to every board member. Actually, Taylor spoke up. Her voice was steady, clear, and colder than ice. He does. As of this morning, Sterling Global acquired all outstanding debt and 51% of the voting shares of Thorn Enterprises. The boardroom erupted in chaos. The board members were flipping through the papers, gasping. This is legit," one member stammered. "Sterling owns the majority." Marcus looked like he was going to vomit. "That's impossible. I have the controlling interest." "You had," Taylor corrected, a small, dangerous smile playing on her lips. "Until you leveraged your shares to buy that yacht for Jessica last month. You defaulted on the loan terms. The bank sold the debt. Julian bought it." Taylor leaned forward, locking eyes with the man who had thrown her into the rain 3 days ago. "So technically, Marcus, I'm your boss." "You?" Marcus spat, pointing a shaking finger at her. "You're nothing. You're a pathetic, pregnant charity case. Julian, look at her. She's carrying my bastard child." The room went deadly silent. Julian slowly turned his head toward Marcus. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Correction," Julian said, his voice dropping to a whisper that terrified everyone present. "She is carrying my heir." Gasps rang out. Jessica's jaw hit the floor. Taylor looked at Julian, surprised, but he squeezed her hand under the table. "And," Julian continued, "she is not a charity case. She is Mrs. Taylor Sterling. My wife." "Wife?" Jessica shrieked, standing up. "You married her. She's a whale. She's ugly. She—" "Another word," Julian cut in, staring at Jessica with eyes like dead sharks. "And I will ensure you never work in this city again. In fact, looking at these financials, it seems you've been using company funds for personal vacations." Julian turned to the security guards who had just arrived. "Security," Julian commanded. "Escort Mr. Thorne and Ms. Vane out of the building. They are suspended, pending an embezzlement investigation." "You can't do this to me!" Marcus screamed as 2 guards grabbed his arms. "I built this company. Taylor! Taylor, stop them! I'm the father of your child!" Taylor stood up slowly. She walked over to where Marcus was being held. She looked down at him, her hand resting on her belly. "You lost the right to be a father when you threw us out in the storm," she whispered, loud enough for only him to hear. "Enjoy the gutter, Marcus. I hear it's cold this time of year." "Get him out of my sight," Taylor commanded the guards. As Marcus and Jessica were dragged out, kicking and screaming, the boardroom fell silent. Taylor turned to the stunned board members. "Now," she said, her voice commanding the room, "shall we discuss the actual future of this company?" For the first time in her life, Taylor felt powerful, but she didn't see the dark look in Marcus's eyes as he was dragged away. This wasn't over. Marcus Thorne was a desperate man, and desperate men did dangerous things. 3 weeks had passed since the boardroom coup, and the media storm was relentless. The headlines had shifted from "Billionaire Divorces Pregnant Wife" to "The Pregnant Phoenix," how Taylor Sterling rose from the ashes. Taylor sat in the corner office that used to belong to Marcus. It looked different now. The dark, oppressive mahogany furniture had been replaced with modern glass and warm cream tones. Fresh flowers, white lilies, her favorite, arrived every morning, a silent delivery from Julian's office across town. She placed a hand on her stomach. The baby was due any day now. Her ankles were swollen, her back throbbed, and the stress of cleaning up Marcus's financial mess was immense. He had left Thorn Enterprises in shambles, riddled with illegal debts and shell companies. "You should be resting," a voice came from the doorway. Taylor looked up to see Julian. He wasn't wearing his usual armor of a 3-piece suit. Today, he wore a black turtleneck and dark trousers, looking less like a CEO and more like a tactical commander. He walked in, closing the door behind him. "I can't rest," Taylor sighed, rubbing her temples. Marcus signed a contract with a logistics hub in the chaotic industrial district. The safety reports are missing. If I don't inspect it today, the union strikes tomorrow. Julian frowned, walking over to her desk. He placed a warm hand on her shoulder, his thumb rubbing the tension knot in her neck. The touch sent a jolt of warmth through her. Their marriage was supposed to be a contract, revenge and protection, but in the quiet moments at the penthouse, eating late-night takeout or watching movies, the lines had blurred. Julian was fiercely protective, and Taylor found herself leaning on him more than she ever intended. "I'll go," Julian said. "You stay here." "No." Taylor stood up, albeit slowly. "They need to see me. They need to know the new owner isn't afraid to get her hands dirty. I need to prove I'm not just Marcus's ex-wife." Julian studied her face for a moment, seeing the steel in her eyes. He nodded once. "Fine. But I'm coming with you." And Frank drives. The logistics hub was a cavernous warehouse on the outskirts of the city, filled with the screech of metal on metal and the smell of diesel. It was a place of hard hats and heavy machinery. The foreman, a sweaty man named Miller, met them at the entrance. He wouldn't look Taylor in the eye. He kept wiping his hands on his grease-stained overalls. Mrs. Sterling," Miller stammered. "We wasn't expecting you. The machines are running hot today." "That's why I'm here, Mr. Miller," Taylor said, her voice projecting over the noise. She wore a white hard hat and a high-visibility vest over her maternity dress. "I want to see the conveyor belt system Marcus installed last month." Miller's eyes darted to the catwalks above them. It's not safe up there, ma'am. Maybe we do this in the office." "I'll be fine," Taylor said, stepping onto the warehouse floor. Julian stayed glued to her side, his eyes scanning the shadows. He didn't like this. His instincts, honed by years of corporate warfare, were screaming. As they walked down the central aisle, surrounded by towering stacks of shipping crates, Taylor noticed the workers were unusually quiet. They weren't working. They were watching. "Mr. Miller," Julian said, his voice cutting through the air, "why is the safety override on the overhead crane disabled?" Miller froze. I don't know what you mean." "The light is red," Julian pointed up. "That crane is holding 5 tons of steel and the safety lock is off." Suddenly, a metallic clang echoed from the catwalks high above. Taylor looked up just in time to see a shadow move, a figure in a dark hoodie sprinting away. Then, a terrible groaning sound filled the air. The massive cable holding the suspended steel crate snapped. "Taylor!" Julian didn't think. He didn't hesitate. He lunged at her. He wrapped his arms around her body, shielding her stomach with his own torso, and threw them both to the side, behind a stack of concrete barriers. Crash. The sound was deafening. The ground shook as if a bomb had gone off. Dust and debris exploded outward, filling the air with a choking grey cloud. The crate had landed exactly where Taylor had been standing a second ago. If Julian hadn't moved, she would have been flattened. Silence followed, broken only by the settling dust and Taylor's coughing. "Taylor!" "Ellie!" Julian's voice was ragged. He was hovering over her, his body forming a protective cage. "Are you hurt?" "The baby?" Taylor was shaking, her eyes wide with terror. She clutched his arms. I'm okay. I think I'm okay." Julian looked up, his face transforming into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Blood trickled down his temple where a piece of debris had struck him, but he didn't feel it. He stood up, helping Taylor gently to her feet, then turned to Miller. The foreman was cowering near a forklift, looking at the destroyed crate with horror. Julian walked over to him. He moved so fast Miller didn't have time to run. Julian grabbed the man by the collar of his overalls and slammed him against the forklift. "Who?" Julian roared, his voice echoing through the silent warehouse. "Who paid you?" I didn't know," Miller blubbered, tears streaming down his face mixed with grease. "He said it would just scare her. He said no one would get hurt." "Who?" Julian tightened his grip, lifting the man off his feet. "Thorne," Miller screamed. "It was Marcus Thorne. He met me last night. He gave me 50 grand to cut the cable. He said if she was dead, he'd get the company back." Taylor gasped, her hands covering her mouth. Marcus hadn't just tried to sabotage her reputation. He had tried to kill her. He had tried to kill his own unborn child just to get his money back. Julian dropped Miller like a sack of garbage. He turned to his head of security, who was running toward them with guns drawn. "Arrest him," Julian commanded, pointing at Miller, "and lock down the city. I want Marcus Thorne found. If he tries to leave New York, burn him down." Julian turned back to Taylor. The rage in his eyes vanished, replaced by a desperate fear. He scooped her up into his arms, ignoring her protests. "We're going to the hospital," he stated. "Right now." "Julian, I'm fine. You almost died, Taylor." His voice cracked, a sound so raw it silenced her. He looked at her, his grey eyes shimmering with emotion. "I almost lost you. Do you understand? I don't care about the company. I don't care about the war. I cannot lose you." Taylor rested her head against his chest, listening to the frantic beating of his heart. In that dust-filled warehouse, amidst the wreckage of an assassination attempt, she realized something. She wasn't just his business partner, and he wasn't just her savior. They were falling in love. The attempt on Taylor's life changed everything. Julian went into total lockdown mode. The penthouse became a fortress. He hired ex-Mossad agents to stand guard at the elevator, the lobby, and even the fire escape. Marcus Thorne was officially a fugitive. The police had issued a warrant for attempted murder. But Marcus had vanished. His accounts were frozen, his assets seized. But a desperate man with connections to the criminal underworld could hide for a long time. 2 weeks passed. The due date was 3 days away. Taylor felt heavy, like a ticking time bomb. The doctor had ordered bed rest, but Taylor was restless. She paced the living room of the penthouse, looking out at the rain-slicked city. "You're pacing again," Julian said from the sofa. He was working on his laptop, but his eyes followed her every move. "I feel useless," Taylor complained. "I'm trapped in a glass cage." "You're safe," Julian corrected. "That's what matters." "I need fresh air, Julian. Real air, not recycled AC air." She turned to him with pleading eyes. "Can we just go for a drive, just around the block? I promise I won't get out of the car." Julian hesitated. He hated the idea of her leaving the penthouse, but he saw the toll the confinement was taking on her. She looked pale and depressed. "Fine," he relented, closing his laptop. "Frank will bring the armored SUV. We do 1 loop around Central Park and we come back. 5 guards follow us." Taylor smiled, the first real smile in days. "Thank you." The drive started peacefully. The rain drummed rhythmically against the bulletproof glass of the SUV. Julian held Taylor's hand in the back seat, his thumb tracing the knuckles. "When the baby comes," Julian said softly, looking out the window, "I was thinking, we should name him after your father, Robert." Taylor squeezed his hand, tears pricking her eyes. "I'd like that. Robert Julian Sterling." Julian looked at her, surprised. "You want to give him my name?" "You saved him," Taylor whispered. "You're more of a father to him than Marcus ever was." The moment was perfect. Peaceful. Then, chaos erupted. As they turned a quiet corner near the park's west entrance, A heavy garbage truck smashed into the lead security car, crushing it instantly. "Ambush!" Frank yelled, slamming on the brakes. Before the SUV could reverse, a second truck slammed into them from behind, pinning the car. The impact threw Taylor forward, the seatbelt digging painfully into her stomach. She screamed. "Stay down!" Julian roared, unbuckling his seatbelt and throwing himself over her. The windows were bulletproof, but they weren't bomb-proof. A masked man ran up to the side of the car and slapped a device onto the window. Boom! The door was blown off its hinges. The concussion grenade disoriented everyone inside. Julian tried to reach for the gun in his ankle holster, but a taser prong hit him in the neck. He convulsed and slumped over Taylor, unconscious. "Get her! Leave him!" a frantic voice shouted. Rough hands grabbed Taylor. She kicked and screamed, fighting with the ferocity of a mother protecting her young. "Julian! Julian!" she screamed, reaching for his unconscious body. "Shut her up!" A cloth soaked in chloroform was pressed over her face. She held her breath, trying to fight it. But the darkness clawed at the edges of her vision. The last thing she saw was Julian lying on the floor of the car, bleeding from the head as the rain poured in. Taylor woke up to the smell of rust and rotting fish. She was tied to a wooden chair. Her hands were bound behind her back, and her ankles were taped to the chair legs. Pain radiated through her lower back, sharp, rhythmic, cramping pain. She groaned, lifting her head. She was in an old boat shed. Water lapped against the wood beneath the floorboards. Finally, a voice sneered from the shadows. Marcus Thorne stepped into the light of a hanging bulb. He looked terrible. His expensive suit was torn and dirty. He hadn't shaved in weeks, and his eyes were wild, bloodshot and twitching. He held a revolver loosely in his hand. Behind him stood Jessica Vane, but she didn't look like the arrogant supermodel anymore. She was shivering, hugging herself, looking terrified of Marcus. "Marcus!" Taylor gasped. "Let me go, the baby." "The baby!" Marcus laughed, a manic, high-pitched sound. "Always about the baby. That thing ruined my life. You ruined my life." He paced back and forth, waving the gun. "I had everything, Taylor. Money, respect, power. Then you and your new husband took it all away. Do you know what it's like to sleep in a dumpster? Do you?" "You did this to yourself," Taylor said, trying to keep her voice steady, though panic was rising in her throat. She felt another cramp, stronger this time, a contraction. "Oh God, not now. Please, not now." "Shut up!" Marcus struck her across the face with the back of his hand. Taylor tasted blood. "Marcus, stop!" Jessica cried out. "We're supposed to just ransom her. You said we wouldn't hurt her." "I lied!" Marcus screamed at Jessica, pointing the gun at her. Jessica whimpered and shrank back. "There is no ransom, you idiot. Julian won't pay. He'll hunt us down. The only way out is to make him suffer. I'm going to kill her, and then I'm going to send him the body." "Marcus, please," Taylor panted, the pain in her stomach becoming unbearable. "I'm going into labor. The baby is coming." Marcus stared at her stomach. A cruel, twisted idea seemed to form in his mind. "Good," he whispered. "Let it come. Let Julian know his heir died in a filthy boat shed." He pulled out a burner phone and dialed a number. He put it on speaker. "Sterling," Marcus said when the line clicked. "Marcus." Julian's voice came through the phone. It was terrifyingly calm. It sounded like death itself. "If you touch one hair on her head, I will peel the skin from your bones." Empty threats from a man who lost his wife, Marcus taunted. "I have her, Julian. And guess what? She's having the baby right now, in a dirty, cold shed. And you're helpless. What do you want?" "I want you to sign over everything," Marcus demanded. "The company, the assets, your personal fortune. Transfer it all to an offshore account in the Caymans. You have 1 hour. If the money isn't there, Taylor dies. If you call the cops, she dies. I need proof of life." Marcus shoved the phone against Taylor's face. "Julian!" Taylor screamed, unable to hold back a sob of pain as another contraction ripped through her. "Julian, it hurts. The baby is coming." "Ellie, listen to me." Julian's voice shifted, becoming urgent and soft. "I'm coming. Do you hear me? I am coming for you. Just breathe. Hold on." Marcus pulled the phone away and hung up. He smashed the phone under his heel. "He's not coming," Marcus spat. "He's probably calling his lawyers to see if you're worth the cost." Taylor bowed her head, breathing through the pain. She knew Julian better than that. He wasn't calling lawyers. He was hunting. But time was running out. The contractions were 3 minutes apart. "Jessica," Taylor whispered, looking at the other woman. Jessica was crying silently in the corner. "Jessica, please, you're a woman. Don't let him do this. My baby. He's innocent." Jessica looked at Taylor, then at the unhinged Marcus, who was muttering to himself and checking his gun. She saw the madness in his eyes. She realized that even if they got the money, Marcus was going to kill them all. He was too far gone. Jessica's eyes darted to a rusty fishing knife lying on a workbench near her. "Help me," Taylor mouthed. Suddenly, a loud noise came from outside, the sound of a helicopter rotor blade chopping the air. Marcus panicked. "He found us! How did he find us?" He ran to the window. "I told him no cops!" As Marcus looked out the window, Jessica made her move. She didn't grab the knife. She wasn't brave enough to fight Marcus. Instead, she ran for the door, unbolted it, and fled into the night, leaving the door wide open. "You bitch!" Marcus turned and fired a shot at the fleeing woman, missing her. He turned back to Taylor, his face twisted into a mask of pure hate. "Fine," he snarled, raising the gun to Taylor's head. "If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me." Taylor squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the bullet. Crash. The skylight above them shattered. A figure in black tactical gear rappelled down on a rope, swinging through the broken glass like a dark angel. It wasn't the police, it was Julian. He hit the ground and rolled. Marcus spun around, firing wildly. Bang! Bang! A bullet grazed Julian's shoulder, but he didn't even slow down. He closed the distance in a second. He didn't use a weapon. He used his fists. He slammed into Marcus with the force of a freight train. The gun skittered across the floor. Julian unleashed a lifetime of rage into Marcus's face. Left, right, a knee to the ribs. Bone crunched. Marcus collapsed, wheezing, blood pouring from his nose and mouth. Julian stood over him, breathing heavily, his knuckles bloody. He pulled his own gun from his holster and aimed it right between Marcus's eyes. "No!" Taylor screamed. "Julian! The baby! The baby is coming now!" Julian froze. He looked at Marcus, who was unconscious and broken, then at his wife, who was writhing in pain. He holstered his gun. Marcus wasn't worth the time. Taylor needed him. He rushed to her, cutting the ropes with a knife from his belt. "I've got you," he gasped, catching her as she slumped forward. "I've got you, Ellie." "Julian?" She grabbed his shirt, her nails digging into his skin. "I can't move. He's coming. The head. I can feel the head." Julian looked around. The shed was filthy. The helicopter was outside, but there was no time to get her to a hospital. "Okay," Julian said, his voice trembling for the first time. He stripped off his tactical jacket and laid it on the cleanest part of the floor. He lifted her onto it. "Okay, we do this here. You and me." "I'm scared," Taylor sobbed. Julian took her hand, kissing her sweat-drenched forehead. "Look at me." You are the strongest woman I know. You survived him. You survived the storm. You can do this. Push, Taylor. Push!" As the police sirens wailed in the distance and the storm raged outside, a new sound filled the boat shed. A cry. A loud, healthy, piercing cry of a newborn baby. Julian lifted the tiny, slippery bundle into the air. He was crying, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the blood and grime. "It's a boy," Julian whispered, his voice breaking with joy. "Ellie, look, it's our son." He placed the baby on Taylor's chest. Taylor looked down at the tiny face, the dark hair, the scrunched-up eyes. He was perfect. They were safe. 1 year later. The morning sun filtered through the sheer curtains of the master suite in the Sterling penthouse, casting a warm, golden glow over the room. It was a stark contrast to the cold, rainy night that had started it all. Taylor stood by the crib in the nursery, watching her son, Robert Julian Sterling, sleep. At 12 months old, he was a perfect blend of his parents. He had Taylor's soft smile, but Julian's intense, calculating grey eyes. She wasn't the same woman who had been dragged out of the Thorne mansion. The fear that used to live in her posture was gone, replaced by a natural, fluid grace. She wore a tailored cream business suit, her hair styled in a sharp, professional cut. She was the CEO of the newly rebranded Phoenix Holdings, formerly Thorne Enterprises. Under her leadership, the company's stock had tripled. She hadn't just saved the company, she had reinvented it. Strong arms wrapped around her waist from behind. She didn't flinch. She leaned back into the embrace. "He's finally asleep," Julian whispered, kissing the side of her neck. "He has your stubbornness." "He has your energy," Taylor corrected, turning in his arms to face him. Julian Sterling, the Ice King of New York, looked different too. The hard lines of his face had softened. He smiled more in the last year than he had in the previous 40. He was still the most feared man in the boardroom, but at home he was simply a father and a husband. "Are you ready for tonight?" Julian asked, adjusting the lapel of her jacket. "The charity gala." Taylor sighed. "The press will be there. They still want to talk about the kidnapping, about Marcus." Julian's expression darkened slightly at the mention of the name. "Let them talk. You are the woman who survived. You are the victor. Marcus is nothing more than a cautionary tale." The reality of Marcus's fate was far grimmer than a tale. 300 miles away, in the maximum security wing of Upstate Correctional Facility, inmate 8940 shuffled into the common room. Marcus Thorne looked 20 years older. His hair was thinning and grey, his once manicured hands rough and calloused from prison labour. He sat down at a metal table, staring at the small, mounted television in the corner. It was the only window he had to the world he used to rule. On the screen, a news channel was broadcasting live from the Met Gala red carpet. "And here comes the power couple of the decade," the reporter gushed. "Taylor and Julian Sterling. Taylor is wearing a custom gold gown, looking absolutely radiant. It's hard to believe that just a year ago, she was involved in one of the most high-profile kidnapping cases in state history." Marcus watched, his jaw tight. He saw Taylor. She looked magnificent. She looked untouchable. She was laughing at something Julian whispered in her ear. She was wearing the diamonds Marcus had once told her were too good for her. "Hey, old man." A younger inmate shoved Marcus's shoulder. "Move it. I want to watch the game." "That's my wife," Marcus muttered, pointing a shaking finger at the screen. "That was my company." The inmates laughed. "Yeah, right, Thorne. And I'm the Queen of England." "Move." Marcus was shoved off the bench. He fell to the cold concrete floor, scraping his elbow. As he looked up, He saw Jessica Vane on the screen, but not on the red carpet. The news segment had cut to a "Where are they now?" feature. Jessica had testified against Marcus to cut a plea deal. She avoided prison time, but was sentenced to 5 years of probation and community service. The footage showed her wearing an orange vest, picking up trash on the side of the Jersey Turnpike. She looked miserable, her beauty faded by bitterness and hard labor. Marcus closed his eyes. He had tried to destroy Taylor to save his ego. Instead, he had forged her into steel and locked himself in a cage. The realization was a heavier weight than any prison sentence. Back at the gala, the flashbulbs were blinding. Taylor stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of New York's elite. Julian stood just off stage, his eyes never leaving her. He was her shadow, her protector, her partner. "Mrs. Sterling," a reporter shouted from the front row, "you've been through hell and back. You were betrayed, destitute, and nearly killed. What is your message to women who feel like they have no hope?" The room went quiet. Taylor touched the microphone. She thought back to the rain, to the mud, to the moment the door slammed in her face. She thought about the boat shed and the moment Julian repelled through the skylight like a guardian angel. "My message," Taylor said, her voice clear and resonant, "is that rock bottom is a foundation. When I was thrown out into the storm, I thought my life was over. I thought my value was defined by the man who held the deed to my house." She looked over at Julian and smiled, a genuine love-filled smile. "But I learned that a storm doesn't just destroy, it clears the path. It reveals who is standing by your side when the sky falls. I didn't return to this life as a victim. I didn't return just as a wife. I returned as a CEO, as a mother, and as a survivor." She paused, her eyes hardening slightly as she looked into the camera lens, knowing somewhere Marcus might be watching. To anyone who thinks they can discard a human being like trash, remember this: the trash you throw out today might just buy the company you work for tomorrow. The crowd erupted in applause. It was a standing ovation. Later that night, back at the penthouse, the noise of the city was muffled by the thick glass. Taylor stood on the balcony, wrapped in Julian's tuxedo jacket, looking at the skyline. Julian joined her, handing her a glass of sparkling water. "You were incredible tonight," he said. "I was honest," she replied. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Julian." "Thank you for stopping the car that night, for not driving past." Julian turned her around, cupping her face in his hands, the city lights reflected in his eyes. "I didn't save you, Taylor," he said fiercely. "I just gave you a ride. You saved yourself, and in doing so, you saved me. I was a ghost in this penthouse before you arrived. You and Robert. You made me alive." He kissed her, deep and slow, a promise of a lifetime of protection and partnership. The storm had passed, the rain had stopped, and Taylor Sterling, the woman who had been kicked out into the cold, was finally, truly home. And that is the incredible story of Taylor and Julian. From a rainy roadside rejection to the pinnacle of power, Taylor proved that the best revenge isn't just surviving, it's thriving. Marcus learned the hard way that when you treat people like they are nothing, you might just be creating the very enemy who will take everything from you. It's a reminder that no matter how dark the storm gets, there is always a way back up, especially if you have the courage to fight for your own worth. So what did you think? Did Marcus get the punishment he deserved in that prison cell, or should he have suffered more? And would you have forgiven Jessica for her role in the betrayal? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of justice, romance, and sweet revenge, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. We have a crazy thriller coming up next week that you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching, and remember, be careful who you step on today. They might be your boss tomorrow. See you in the next video.